All right, guys, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. Thank you again for your company and for joining me this morning. And let me just give some shout outs over here. I have Iman James on Asema Asubuya Leo Narausha Milka Wanjiru. Okay, thank you for that. Charles Kafu Kafu, you say you're watching us from Karatina. Jeffrey Oindi, you're watching us from Kangemi. Joseph Amayuku, tuned in from Kitengela. And Nduta Nguri, you're watching from Ruaka. Esther Thathi from Narok. Isaac Washira, tuned in from Tasia. I also have Nyathi Afilo Reformed, you're watching from County 001. Jilly Mudeo says, this show makes my day. Umoja 2, we're getting you loud and clear. Good morning. Asante sana for that. Sheila Koske as well. Thank you for the compliments. I do appreciate every one of you guys. Continue sending in your feedback to 22999. And you can also reach me on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter at Switch TV Kenya and on Instagram at Switch TV KE. Now, we're going to switch gears just a little bit now and talk to my next guest. He goes by the name Haroun Risa, and he's an author and a scriptwriter, an actor as well. And it's good to have you here on the show.
Asante sana.
He's written a book, a young guy with a very fat book, I have to say. That's good.
Thank you.
It's called Mombasa Raha, My Foot. Beyond the hotel gates, money silenced many. Wow, what a title. I love it. Very catchy, very almost dramatic in the sense that because it goes against a lot of what we, know and love Mombasa for, right? So very quickly, just tell me about this title.
Mombasa Raha, My Foot is a fiction novel series that I started to primarily raise awareness against human trafficking and sex tourism in Kenya. Mostly because this is something that has really affected Kenyans quite at large.
Right.
And this is also something that I've, to some extent, witnessed. So from hearing
You witnessed? Because I was going to ask you, how did you get involved in all of this?
Well, I kind of witnessed it in a rather private part of life, but yeah.
Okay.
To some extent I actually did. And from years of hearing the raw testimonies from people, it's kind of the scenario where you point the finger at yourself and you ask yourself, considering this is happening, what would you personally do about such a situation?
Okay.
So for me, I decided I'll start by even achieving something I've always wanted to achieve, and that's writing a novel.
Okay.
Because I've always wanted to be an author since childhood.
All right. Well, it's a pretty chunky book, I'll tell you that. I mean, you did good. But just to put this conversation in context, right, because you're saying that this is to highlight the issue about sex trafficking and human trafficking here in Kenya, specifically at the coast.
Yeah.
So on page 8 of your book, then you have some statistics here. You say it is estimated that 30,000 Kenyan children are victims of the sex tourism industry. A UNICEF-supported 2006 survey on sex tourism along the Kenyan coast reported that between 2,000 and 3,000 girls worked year-round as commercial sex workers, and nearly half of them started as young as age 12 or 13 years. And that actually is by UNICEF.
Yes, those are statistics that I started to do research on. I found statistics from UNICEF, the Walk Free movement, and even people who had talked about the issue, like a lady called Naomi Conrad. It was a DW interview that I found online. And while looking at all these statistics, that's when I realized that I can use these statistics to be able to actually create a story. The same way Dan Brown uses the Illuminati to write Angels and Demons. So for me, I decided to start Mombasa Raha, My Foot, which is a fiction novel series that I started. And currently I'm on the 5th novel, actually.
Oh, okay, in this series.
Yeah.
Well, some other statistics here. This was by the U.S. State Department, 10 years ago, reported that Kenya is a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children trafficked for the purpose of forced labor and sexual exploitation. Kenyan children are trafficked within the country for domestic servitude, forced labor in agriculture, including on flower plantations, cattle herding in bars, and for commercial sex exploitation, including involvement in the coastal sex tourism industry. And I mean, the statistics continue, but this is actually being termed an industry, a coastal sex tourism industry.
Yeah.
Right? And we've, of course, used the term Mombasa Raha just to, I guess, maybe in many ways now we haven't known the extent to which that term is actually relating. But I don't know if you're aware of what sort of the government is doing right now. Have you been able to share your findings in this work that you're doing with any government bodies or any regulatory agencies?
There's an NGO called Heart Kenya, HAART Kenya. That is the NGO in Kenya that deals with human trafficking issues. And one of their representatives, she came to my book launch, which was on November 6th at the Alliance Francaise. And she also talked about how human trafficking has really affected Kenyans. She gave a lot of information, and this is the NGO that I've started working with.
All right.
Because I also dropped a copy of Mombasa Raha My Foot to them. Because it's not just going to be novels only. Mombasa Raha My Foot will also be adapted into film, starting with the first novel.
Well, that's the thing, though, that I want to ask you about, though, because this is based on real statistics, real facts, and they're not good ones, right? These are
chilling,
damning statistics about our children being put in an industry where there are apparently people who just come into this country particularly for that purpose. Why would you use fiction then to talk about this? Do you feel, does that in any way sort of almost diminish it or lessen it in some way because it's fictional now?
Well, from one thing I learned from even authors, even fellow authors from online mostly, is that there's a way fiction tells the truth better than a lot of things, even journalists. There's an author from abroad who actually told me that fiction tells the truth better than a lot of things. So there are some things that you actually get to learn by watching fictional stuff. And I also have always wanted to be an author since I was a kid. And my compositions in school were the reason why a lot of teachers would have a lot of questions. You know, they'd be like, "Huyu kijana andiki kama mtoto." They would say that mostly, you know. And there's even a point where my parent was called to school to explain what TV shows I watch at home.
Wow.
Because the compositions, well, teachers couldn't mark them. Yeah, you'd find like 32 and 34 have been erased and 36 has been added. So when I started with Mombasa Raha My Foot, you know, I just looked at the aspect of Mombasa Raha, the fun and excitement that people have once they go to Mombasa. So I decided, okay, the aspect of sex tourism and human trafficking goes against Mombasa Raha. Hence the title, Mombasa Raha My Foot.
Right. So who are you targeting with the writing of this book? What would you like people to take away from it as they read it?
The one thing that I'd like people to learn is that we have generations to take care of. And the child isn't always wrong and the parent isn't always right. So with matters concerning our future generations, we should be role models. We should be positive role models to the generations that we bring to this world. That's why with matters concerning Mombasa Raha My Foot, I would say that it's not right to use your kid as a source of income, because that's generally what human trafficking and sex tourism is.
Right. And there was a very interesting quote here, and it points to the way that we almost diminish this culture of, you know, dating people for money, let me say. I have no problem with interracial relationships, but there was a quote I saw somewhere here about an urban coastal proverb that...
nothing gets a family out of poverty faster than a daughter with a white boyfriend.
Right.
You see, I too have no problem with interracial relationships, as long as you're above 18, of course.
Right.
But the problem is that you find that there are some families that think we can just sell our daughter to a mzungu somewhere, and then this mzungu will be giving us money. There are families that do that in the coast, and that's messed up if you ask me, because this daughter deserves to grow up, deserves to actually achieve whatever dreams that this daughter, or in some cases son, has.
Yeah.
So it's only fair if you actually stop using your kid as a source of income, just because you as a parent have failed to provide for this kid because of sometimes circumstances out of your control. So that's why I also included that quote there, because this is something I've even heard people say. They'd be like, yeah, nothing gets a family out of poverty faster.
Yeah.
So they would even convince other families. They'd be like, yeah, nothing gets you out of poverty faster.
Wow.
It's not always about the money, because in the end, you're going to leave this planet the same way you came.
Sure. And there's a quote you have here at the back saying, maturity isn't measured by birthday cakes. Tell me about that.
Well, the thing is, most people think that maturity is just about the physical aspect of just growing up and celebrating one year after the other. Well, yes, of course, there's no problem with celebrating birthdays. But the aspect is, there's so much more to maturity than just getting older, especially mentally. There is so much that a young person can not only learn, but achieve as well.
Right.
There's so much, and most people need to realize that too, because we have some examples of young people who have achieved quite a lot before they even hit the third floor.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, the book, I mean, it certainly sounds very chilling. You're saying this is the 5th one in this series?
Well, Mombasa Raha, my foot, is the first one.
Okay.
The 5th one that I'm currently working on is called The Pirates of Zanzibar, Darkest Salam.
Wow. Hey, Maze, you have the gift of scary titles. But tell us where people can get this book. How much is it as well? And yeah, maybe people would be happy to, go and grab a copy of this book and just to be able to understand exactly what is going on. You're right that, that information and awareness is very important for us even beginning to address issues.
Yeah. The book currently goes for 1,500 Kenya shillings. And you can get a copy through me, getting in touch with me on social media.
Okay.
Or visiting the Nuria store.
Nuria.
Nuria, Nuria store.
Okay.
It's directly behind the Nation Media building.
Okay, so what are your social handles?
My social handle is my name, Haroun Risa.
Haroun Risa.
Yeah.
Across all platforms?
All platforms.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, Haroun, thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for this copy too.
Okay.
Again, I've been talking to Haroun Risa, who's the author of Mombasa Raha, My Foot. Behind the Hotel Gates, Money Silenced Many. It's a fiction novel about sex trafficking and human trafficking at the Kenyan coast. Do go out, follow his platforms, and get yourself a copy for 1,500 bob. Asante sana.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to get ready for our final segment for the day. And I have another author coming onto studio, and his book is titled A Better Tomorrow. Stay tuned.